All right, so The Mandalorian. Now, oh god, the internet completely ruined the whole Baby Yoda shit for me, and I didn't want to get on board to The Mandalorian until what was it like? Well into, I think people were like sixth or seventh episode, and I still wanted to hold off on it when I heard about it was only 8 episodes long, which is the same as Jack Ryan. But again, it was kind of spoiled for me for Baby Yoda, but everything else I didn't really look into. But what did you think of it? Because you're the one that was really eagerly waiting for it, and then for me, it was just like, I was just playing catch up.
Yeah, no, I got jumped on like from. I waited until episode 3 was up. That was mainly because like I was trying to work out the whole free week and then payday to get the Disney Plus subscription. So I waited a little bit, but yeah, I was eager for it because it was different to what we had seen. So I was like, it's not to do with Jedi, it's not to do with Han Solo, it's not to do with Rogue One. This is its own expanded little universe, and um, overall, like I actually really think it done justice and done really, really well in my eyes.
Yeah, but the thing is, hold on, did you say you also got it on Disney Plus as well, or?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't, you didn't get it through any other means, or you just wanted to go through like the I shouldn't say, well, it sounds weird, but like the legal channels of it, like just actually signing up to the Disney service, or?
Yes, no, I didn't want to be a didn't want to join Hondo and Arca and become a pirate, so I did the right thing and paid for my services.
Ugh, too late for me.
As long as you've watched it, that's the important part.
Well, yeah, well, they gained another sort of fan from me, but Disney Plus, I can't remember because I think you did mention it to me, and then what was it here in Australia? It crashed.
Yeah, like they won. The servers just weren't ready. I think in a way it just wasn't ready for how many people were actually anticipating and waiting for it. So I had a lot of friends who were like had it up and running, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I had some friends who were just like, what the fuck, and they were getting the message saying cannot connect in your country. So day one wasn't a good launch. So I'm very happy I waited a couple of weeks.
What was the pricing for it?
It's $7.99 a month. So compared to other streamers, it's relatively decent price.
So less than Stan, less than definitely less than Foxtel, but less than Netflix as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, Netflix is hiked again, so it's still under the price of everything. So for what's on there at the moment, the price is worth it.
Wait, so Netflix also, when you say hiked again, what they jacked up the prices, or?
Yeah, a few months ago, another email went out for another price increase, and but again, they didn't do a content update as well, so it kind of really kicked you in the nuts when they did.
How much is it now?
Well, I'm paying for two devices, and I'm paying 23 a month at the moment.
23. So then if we divided that by two, it's like what? Almost $11, 11.50 or something, or
Give or
kind of?
take, yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, I didn't know that they hiked up the prices, but because I never signed up to Netflix. I've always wanted to, but based on the content from what I heard comparing from Australia to America, I didn't. Um but we digress. With the Mandalorian though, for me, because your take on it is pretty cool. Like I know you were really into it, and I know a friend of mine was really into it, and I was like, nah, I didn't really, to put it bluntly, it just didn't interest me at all. So then when I waited for it to finish at about what episode 8 was just after Christmas, was it? It was after Christmas or before?
Just before I think it was, or just after. I think it was just after.
Yeah, just a little bit after, and then I thought, oh, okay, I'll try and binge watch it, and I did my best to binge watch it, which I did, and I think like the first 6 episodes didn't really impress me because some of the stories I could tell that they were taken from other stories, like where they defend the village from the, I don't know why that Chicken Walker or the At was possessed, by those. You know that episode, yeah.
Yeah, the Sanctuary is the episode name.
Yeah, so the sanctuary, and I don't know why that AT is it AT-AT? Yeah, AT-AT?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ATS, ATST.
Oh, ATS. Oh,
ST, yes, Scout Train. Yep.
yeah, 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 the chicken walker. So I don't understand why that was possessed, and I know that particular story reminds me of that old Japanese movie and story of those mercenary Ronin samurai who decide to help out a village from bandits and all that stuff. You know the one that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I remember the one, yes. It's old black and white, too.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it, and I know I have it somewhere in my digital collection, but that kind of reminded me of that. So I was like, okay, okay. Um, the whole I found that pretty intriguing as well in terms of the Mandalorian. Now, my research before today was that I didn't know about the Great Purge, and I decided to look it up on Wikipedia, and there's not much about it. Apparently, that's a Disney thing.
Yeah, so like you kind of try and grasp as much as you can throughout the series because, again, yeah, there's not a lot out there on it. So I'm personally kind of hoping that the Disney writers kind of give us a bit more on that, so we can kind of build on the universe that they've already given us. But yeah, it's still fairly shadowy and kind of, I guess you could say, like self-designing for the time being, if you want to put it that way.
Because it's supposed to put the Mandalorian on a pedestal, saying that they're the best type of fighters in the galaxy at the time. But do you know if anything like that was similar to the EU? I couldn't get anything from Wikipedia. I didn't see any sort of similarities, if there was any purges with the Mandalorians.
Yeah, no, like only extended universe that I could really fall on was the old Mandalorian Wars, where they first went to battle in the Outer Rims against the Old Republic, and then eventually, Revan and Malik intervened and had their ultimate showdown on Malachor 5, which was then again a testament again to the Mandalorians and kind of built from there. But yeah, I cannot remember anything else other than that for the time being.
Yeah, I had a feeling. So, again, that's where I'm thinking that Disney have decided to make them sort of a purge in this particular world where, oh yeah, they're the greatest fighters in the galaxy, warriors, pardon me. They're adept, blah blah blah. But we all know that the Mandalorians, of course, in the EU, I mean, they were adept, and they would have, all sorts of secrets, and that they were formidable warriors, even working against and sometimes working together with the Jedi. But also the way that they fought as well was to counter Jedi. So they knew the threats in the galaxy, and they're resourceful. But going back to the show, I was thinking, okay, episode that again, that episode didn't really interest me. Man, it took me a while, but I completely didn't realize that the alien that they first meet, that Mando first meets when he has to, where his ship gets stripped by the Jawas, which is really interesting that they did that episode. You get to see what the Jawas are like, and they're a bunch of little shits. But like, I didn't know that little alien that directs Mando to use the those creatures that they ride on. I didn't know that was Nick Nolte.
He has spoken.
Right?
It's probably like one of the only roles in the world where he didn't actually need that much makeup.
Or he just didn't have to be involved in it at all, just his voice. But like, I just completely forgot, and I remember I'm like, "Where's Nick Nolte in this?" And then I listened hard. I'm like, "Okay, that's him," and what a great role for him, I think, because Nick Nolte's come a long way, and to be part of like some part of like the Star Wars universe in that capacity, especially with what I think without his personal life trying to edge into his business life. I think he's come a long way because I know there was a big fall from grace from the 90s. Like he was in a lot of things, and then 2000 to 2010, and then 2010 until now, not really too much. But yeah, that was a really great thing to hear from sort of recognize his voice, and then of course. MMA fighter Gina Carano. Oof.
She thick and she nice.
Right? Like it's really cool to see her. Like I didn't think that when I first heard about her, I'm just like, okay, where does this go? And then when they brought up her backstory, like she used to be a rebel shock trooper, and she used to fight for the rebels. I'm just like, oh, I really, really, really want to see her in action during the Rebel Alliance fights. Like that means that depending on I'm hoping if she was a rebel shock trooper, I'm hoping she was there for Hoth. But that's a devastating battle. That's one of the worst that the Alliance, um, in their history. That was one of their worst losses. Like, oh, like, do you know much about the Battle of Hoth?
Not a hell of a lot, no, but the shock troopers, yes. Like my knowledge of them's pretty, my above average. Like I'm aware that they were always, because of the transports that they were usually dropped in on, couldn't have a lot of weaponry with you. So like they'd have maybe one rifle with one round of ammunition, maybe a pistol, sidearm, potentially a vibroblade if they needed to be silent. So they were very good at what they did, and like they could have very bare minimal, but do the most potential damage than a frontline troop. So their job was just to get in there, essentially fuck shit up, put him in disarray. So when the frontline troops came in, it was basically just a cleanup job.
Yeah, they did all the gritty, dirty work, and she was, and it was, I think it was a great choice for her because to choose Gina Carano because she's built, she can fight, and she just like when I sort of like heard her backstory that she was a shock trooper, I'm like, man, yeah, I could so totally see that, and just the way that she wields her weapons as well. So when I first saw her up at that world where Mando and little baby Greenling Yoda was trying to run away from him. I'm like, oh, she's got to be related somehow to him in some sort of capacity. So that was really good to find that out as well. And then she went on her way, and then she came back. So um, really cool for that one. And actually, what you mentioned about vibroblades, I think it was really cool that they showed a little bit of that. Where what was it? After he gave back I'll call it a youngling. After he gave back the youngling, even though it was 50 years old, to the imps. Um, and then he's trying to get his Beskar armor, right? Made up for him after he comes back with all that Beskar, and then they have that fight, and then you see the vibroblades come out.
Oh, when I saw that vibroblade come out, and you can actually see like the fluctuation of the blade, I was like, that is commitment to detail, and I approve.
Yeah, that was really good too, because I didn't really, from in my mind's eye, when I first heard about them and read about them in the EU, I'm like, it's just this blade that just jiggles about. But then when you see it the way that they portrayed it there, between the Mandalorian Creed, it was like, okay, it's so much more devastating, it's so much more visceral, and you would hate to actually have that stab because if that stabs, then it keeps moving, it keeps cutting, it keeps vibrating, and it would just be just devastating.
Yeah, and like the law behind the vibroblade is that it's the vibrations designed to actually be able to penetrate armor. So the whole vibrating is the idea that it's got to break up the actual molecules between the metal armor and actually get in there and actually get past that plating, get in there for a nice kill shot. So you would not want to be stabbed with that without armor. So I would hate to imagine what it would feel like just going through straight flesh.
Mm. Um, the other episode I wanted to mention definitely was the IG teaming up with the IG-88 robot. Now, I think a lot of people who weren't really well versed in the Mandalorian and all that stuff, probably only remember or know of the IG-88 model in Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire, the one that was with Dash Rendar.
Yes, and then there's also a small snippet in Empire Strikes Back when Vader's talking to the
Oh
bounty
yeah, yeah,
hunters.
yeah.
There is an IG-88 in the background, so that, and apart, if you haven't watched Clone Wars as well, then yeah, not very big appearances for them.
Yeah, it wasn't really a big appearance for Clone Wars, but then again, I haven't seen that in ages, so have to refresh myself to actually watch that before apparently season 7 comes out, which I don't know what took them so freaking long, but anyway. That was really nice to see, sort of set the tone in that first episode where they sort of teamed up and he hates droids. Go figure, another character that hates droids. But like, I thought that was really good to see that their partnership, as well as the I don't know, it kind of set the tone of what the series is going to be, because I saw a hint of some comedy there where he just wants to keep self-destructing, and Mando's like, no, stop it, just work with me here, like I don't want to self-destruct and stuff like that. And he's like, look, I'm just going to go over this way and you go that way. No, I'm thinking about self-destructing. No, I just did what I say. So I think that was a nice setting of that, but the humor, I think throughout the series didn't feel forced like Marvel, and for the love of God, it did not feel like. Thank God it did not feel like fucking The Last Jedi and all that shit.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a natural pace one, and like especially the interactions with the Mandalorian and little baby Green, like it was just sort of like an uncle with looking after his sister's baby kind of comedy, and it really sat well.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, with all the memes that emerged from him playing around in the ship, and then he's like, "Oh, for God's sakes, just sit in my lap." Like, I think that's a very hard. Going into the character Mando before I talk about the comedy and the director, but like Mando himself, who is, we eventually know what he looks like later in the last episode, but the guy who plays him, I forgot his name.
Pedro Pascal.
That's the one. He must have had a pretty crazy year, because he's got he got Mando, he had something else before that, and then now he's going to be appearing in Wonder Woman 1984. So he's gotten quite a lot of roles back to back. So he's on a big role right now, and I think it's a testament for his acting that, look, the Mandalorian Creed belief is that they don't show their faces, they don't take their helmets off, and if they do take their helmet off and somebody else is present, a living presence, then they can't. That's it. They're gone. Their identity is ruined. But obviously, in that little nice little, I wouldn't say loophole, but it was like, I have to take your helmet off in order to, heal your cranium. And it's like, I'm not a living organism. It's like, oh, okay. It's the IG-88 droid that turned into a what was it, a babysitting droid or
Nanny programming.
nanny programming? That's right, that's right. So I think the actor and Mando, um, it's just one of those things where I think, for me, I felt as if, like, when they put up the story that he's the greatest warrior, or they're the greatest warriors in the galaxy, and blah blah blah, he would have had to have learned, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ever revealed this, but I wouldn't, like, he'd have to learn his movement, maybe some head tilting, and his body language towards like Darth Vader, like very similar to something like that. Because I recently watched you can't say A New Hope, because I recently watched Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. A New Hope barely had him anyway, but definitely I think Empire Strikes Back is the more, or the beginning of a lot of acting through a mask. How do you convey worry? How do you convey desperation? How do you convey stuff like that? Like, when I say desperation, is like when he's there in Bespin fighting Luke, he's chopped off Luke's hand, and he has to use a lot of movement with his own hands, trying to get Luke to come over to the dark side, and they will rule the galaxy like father and son. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like to again, when you've got no face, you've got no face. So you've got to really utilize your body language, your body structure, your hand gestures. You've got to use the environment. So there's a lot more, and I'm going to say talent, that goes into being able to deliver that in a role where you have a mask on than one where you don't.
Yeah, it's almost as if like it's almost bordering, I shouldn't say physical comedy, but it's like physical acting. So he has to convey everything with his hands, exactly like you say. Head tilting, sometimes just the idea of looking backwards and forwards. Like another one that I really liked was when with Darth Vader, where he's on the bridge and he thinks that they're going to track to beam the Millennium Falcon. He talks to his to Luke. Then the Falcon goes into hyperspace. You see Captain Piet's face looking like, oh god, he's going to get force choked. And then Vader is still looking out in space, right, where the Falcon was. Then he turns towards the camera as if like he's about to walk backwards, but then he turns around again. But in the speed that he turns around back to look at the stars and where the Falcon was, it's like he it's almost like a sadness, or it was just sort of like a slow movement, as if like, my son, come back, come back. And then I really like the way that as he walks back, he puts his hands behind his back, and then he just gives this look towards Captain Piet, Admiral Piet, sorry, Admiral Piet. And then Piet looks at him thinking like, oh, I'm going to get force choke, I'm going to die. Because Vader was known for that, as we know, killing all these officers if they made a mistake. But then Piet, has a sigh of relief, and he lives to fight another day in Return of the Jedi. But then Darth Vader then uncrosses his arms and he just walks away. But you can see that just those emotions, I think, where from look doing the head turn to the leaving of that particular bridge in the Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, there was a lot for me to analyze, and I just thought that there was some good acting in terms of physical acting there as well.
Exactly. Now all we need to do is put a helmet on Kirsten Stewart, and maybe she might become a good actress.
Oh, that's harsh, dude. She just released a movie called Underwater, and I heard it was subpar, but you can't be saying that because Kirsten Stewart, right? She was voted like, did you hear about that? She was voted last year as like, no, not last year, as the best actress of the decade.
Was she voted by blind people?
I don't know. I
I'm fairly
really
sure. I'm
don't.
fairly sure her eyebrows does more acting than she does.
Well, I mean, she could be making a comeback now. Recently, doing Charlie's Angels, Underwater.
You gotta mention Charlie's Angels. Don't do that. Don't do
I had
that.
to
Don't do
mention
that.
it because I just remember that she was in it, but I'm just like, but I don't know if it's good or not.
Oh, look, I've seen some of the trailers for Underwater, and she's got a helmet on, so I'm assuming that's probably helped it.
But yeah, well, I mean, she did have the long hair in The Huntsman,
Yeah, but even that was just barely possible.
right? And it wasn't really about her either. It was more about the Wicked Queen, Charlize Theron, and Chris Hemsworth, the Huntsman.
Exactly. We didn't need her. Get her out of there.
Yeah, Snow Who, but I'm sure she'll bounce back. Whatever. But
I
like,
won't.
hey.
I won't hold my breath, but we'll see what happens. I've been surprised before.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath. I'll probably die. The other thing that I wanted to stretch into was Jon Favreau. So, man, dude, like, okay, actually, before I go into Jon Favreau, I think. Oh no, wait, I'll get into him because of his comedy and because of the way that he sort of directed these, or most of these. Because I know that there was quite a few people from the Disney roster that did some directing, including one actress. I forgot her name. She's got red hair. I think it's God, I forgot her name. I remember her name for one of the episodes. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
No, I'm trying to think about, but I cannot.
Yeah, it was a red-headed actress that I know, but I saw her name and I'm like, "What? You directed this?" But with Jon Favreau, I think him, the one that's spearheading it, Disney couldn't have probably have found a better person because obviously he was the one that really launched the MCU. Robert Downey Jr. co-starred in Iron Man, and then this. So he's probably again. I would have thought that Dave Filoni would have helmed this series because Dave Filoni. knows quite a bit. But I guess they just want to go with John because he knows he's of a bigger budget sort of. He's been there with movies, and this is a TV series, so it's just more of a half step down. But Favreau has done, I think, a pretty good job, and also that extends to, I think, the last two episodes where I'll say now, if we move into that territory, like the last two episodes were the ones that actually got me to liking the whole series. Like I know we haven't talked about the prison episode, which was kind of okay. It sucks that he got blackmailed, but like at the same time, I was just like, there was a lot of background in there for the other characters, including holy shit, Bill Burr.
Bill Burr and what was his name? What was his name?
Was the other one Clancy?
Mark Boone Jr.
I don't.
from Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, yeah. From yeah, Sons of Anarchy. Yeah.
And you also had Richard, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Oede from IT Crowd, who was voicing Zero.
Oh, that was him.
Yeah, little background character to give you a bit of love there.
Oh, I thought I knew that voice, but I didn't really look that up. But that was him. I knew there was something familiar about that voice.
Yeah, as soon as when I watched the episode and I heard his voice, and I'm like, I know that voice, and I just had to look into it. I'm like, I knew it.
Oh man, that's kind of cool. So, wow. Too bad his character died.
Look, it was good while we had him.
Yeah, no, that's true. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so didn't really think too much of that episode, except I just didn't think that the new. Okay, actually, wait, this is an episode we got to talk about because I didn't think that the New Republic was that brutal.
Well, I mean, again, like, if you're gonna build a new republic, and again, like, without knowing the full passenger list of who was actually on that transport apart from Quinn, like, I could kind of understand that it may be kind of a don't take risks, just blow it kind of situation.
But that's brutal though. Like they didn't even like really hesitate. They just said as the three X-wings just come out of hyperspace and fly by Mando. It's like is that the homing beacon? Yeah, that's a homing beacon. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. And then they just go into a full-on attack, and I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Well, again, like this, I said before, like this background things that we can be worried about, and we don't know. Again, they said, the New Republic, if that homing beacon gets activated, they'll destroy the ship regardless. So they set the precipice that that ship would be blown to bits the moment they activated the home beacon. So somebody must have been on that prison transport that they did not want to get out alive.
Well, the thing is, though, you would think that they come out of hyperspace and they look at that and it looks like a station, but then they just go on full-on attack, and I'm just like, oh, that's a little brutal. It's kind of like,
Well, I mean, they were launching their own fighter out as well. So, I mean,
oh, okay, yeah.
so it's kind of like do we wait and see if they're going to launch that fighter and attack us, or do we just bite the bullet, get this done with, go home, have a glass of beer?
Or a glass of blue milk.
Oh yeah, gotta have that blue milk, yo.
Ugh. Well, okay, that actually, I wanted to talk about a bit of the lore for that because based on each of the episodes, God, it feels okay. Yes, they did go to Tatooine, eventually, Mos Eisley, with that girl and the three bots, which was kind of funny because that hangar was just like you could fit in more people, but I think the budget was just like we're just gonna have one woman and three little like miniature bots and all that stuff. But um, the planet that they were on, where he was getting his jobs and all that stuff, like I felt as if like story wise, the New Republic was still struggling to get a foothold in the galaxy after the Death Star. Did you get any sort of like feelings where like the New Republic should be around?
I did, but at the same time, like when they stated that they were kind of outer rimish, it kind of made sense because even throughout all the prequels, original trilogy, sequels, extended universe, the outer rim planets were always the most difficult to get under wraps. So it kind of made sense that the Empire would be able to have as much foothold as they did out there, and that the New Republic would struggle because, I mean, you've got to build the core systems first, and if the core systems aren't built, you're not really going to have much muscle to move outwards. So made kind of sense to me, but at the same time felt like it needed just a dribble more of political side of things, just to kind of help me out a bit.
Well, the other thing as well is that noticing with the New Republic um, prison transport ship to only have one rebel. Um, well, sorry, not one rebel, but one New Republic officer. Just to man a whole ship that's filled with automated bots. So that just shows that uh, they didn't have people wanting to join the New Republic for those kind of jobs or whatnot. I just felt as if like w- what was going on with the New Republic, and then also another. Oh, actually, the fact that when those X-wings came out of hyperspace, did you kind of feel it was weird as well? The reason why I said it was brutal was because when they came out, and then that character from Sons of Anarchy, and then that prisoner that they tried so hard to bail out, looked out and saw the X-wings. They had a lot of fear in them.
Yeah, well, I
Did you
guess
notice
like
that?
yeah, well, I mean, X-wings ultimately were renowned for taking out Death Stars, so I can kind of understand a bit of fear behind it. But again, some things we probably don't know that might get explained in later episodes, I guess. But yeah, it's like when you saw Quinn look out and he saw the X-wings come out, like you saw the fear drop in his face. So I feel there's something more there.
Yeah, something, some sort of maybe New Republic propaganda or something. I don't know, because I'm really interested to see where the New Republic stands. Plus, also, I'll definitely want to I definitely want to ask you a little bit more about that in terms of the future of the Mandalorian, because uh, the other point that I wanted to make was in the last two episodes, I got to admit the reason why I got captured by why it won me over, and I wanted to say this for the record, was because. Um, God, those last two episodes, it felt like Star Wars again. It felt like it just came back. And instead of having the Jedi that was dominating in terms of most of George Lucas's vision and stories for the movies, we've got another race that, they're practically faceless, but they're great warriors. And Mando proved that when he was trying to make a break for the getting rid of those stormtroopers that surrounded him, Gina Carano, and then obviously Carl Weathers. Carl Weathers, another great actor, and his character is pretty cool as well. But yeah, I just felt that those last two episodes were like, it felt truly like Star Wars. That's what won me over.
Yeah, and again, like, pardon me, um, the part that really done well is that even through the action scenes, they allowed it to slow down a little bit to build that dialogue, to build that suspense, to give you that moment where you're like, holy crap, are they actually going to get out of this? It done it properly. It done it like we loved.
Perfect.
That's it. Perfect. Just what you wanted. Slow when it needed to be slow, fast when it needed to be fast, but not too fast that you kind of go through and be like, wait, what the hell did I just watch? But it allowed the dialogue, and that's what the sequels were missing. It needed dialogue.
Oh, it just wasn't even that. It was just missing also pacing, that which we talked about, but it also is just missing that, exactly that learn to slow down when to slow down, and then learn to give give what the previous Star Wars had given. It's the dialogue that makes people understand. Whether it was a little bit slow or not, you're right. I think that also contributed to it. That's why it felt like Star Wars, because it just felt like you get lost in that adventure, you get lost in the scenario, and for some reason it just felt. crazy. Like, for example, when obviously the Grand Moff comes in, and he's TIE fighter and all that stuff, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is. I mean, I heard about him the morning that I was going to watch that episode, and I was like, God damn it, Facebook. And then when I watched it, I still got tingles. I still got tingles. And then the actor who portrays him, which I completely forgot his name. Oh, but I met him. I met him at Comic Con New York back in 2014, and he was also obviously in Breaking Bad. Great actor, like great actor. And then he's just brought to what what an Imperial Grand Moff would be. Especially in that situation. So I'm just like, man, this guy is no nonsense. He's imp to the core, imperial to the core, imp. Um, and he just comes off with this massive load of arrogance that he knows everybody that he had cornered in that little bar.
Yeah, and he had the presence that demanded it on the
That's the
not
one.
just in the show, but like even just on the screen itself. Like when you first see him come out, just his stance when he holds how he holds himself, you're just like, okay, I don't know who you are. I know you're a bad guy. I'm gonna hate you, but I really want to pay attention to you. You
That's it.
just give me what I need, and I need to hear it. And then the way he speaks, the way he presents himself, he has that like no flinch. Like you sometimes like see characters who just like break a little bit, but he never broke. Like he maintained Gideon from first appearance right till that end cliffhanger.
Yes, yes, which we will touch base on that cliffhanger soon as well. The other thing, actually, the other two, three actual poignant moments for me was definitely Nick Nolte's character. Um, he died. Um, man, that got me.
Yes, that was like unexpected.
It was
To be
so
fair,
unexpected. Yeah, you're right. It was so unexpected. And then I remember finishing up from it and I'm like recovering and I'm like, okay, this was like another felt like Star Wars. Like they're they're going through perilous sort of a scenario and he's almost there. Like he's almost there. And then it's just something happens and then we get this reveal and I'm just like it's exactly like my last sort of the last episode that we did talking about Return of the Jedi. I'm just like God, uh it's such a dangerous world. The galaxy in Star Wars. It's so dangerous.
oh yeah, they definitely Ewoked him.
They did, and they really did, and he was just such. For me, I wouldn't say he was a lovable character, but when he used to end things with "I have spoke," what was it? "I have spoken," or
I have spoken. Yep.
yeah, it's just like okay, it's a definitive thing, but also the way that he always talked about his life as well as his beliefs. It was really great because you can hear Nick Nolte put in. It's not just another role for him. That's what makes it great too. Nick Nolte put in a lot of conviction as well. Obviously, as you should for any role, but sometimes you can hear people when they do deliver their lines for other movies or other TV series. You just know that they're just saying their shit just for barely making it, barely impressing, say who cast them, and then it's just for the cash. You know what I mean?
Yep. Sign my paycheck. I'm done now.
Pretty much. So when Nick Nolte, when that happened, and yeah, that broke me like bad, like broke me bad. And then I think the other poignant moment that I had was dude, nanny droid getting it.
Oh man. Again, and another thing that was really well done. Like they took the time to slow down. He had his moment of explaining why he needed to do what he done, the reasoning behind it that allowed you to build that emotion to be like, no, you're so good. Please don't go. Please don't go. And it's just like, and then he goes, and you're just like, damn it.
Exactly, and it's like. how did I, for some strange reason, within one episode of his reprogramming by Nick Nolte's character from a nanny droid, to be like, okay, I still remember him as the mercenary IG-88 droid from the first one, who was just deadly in his accuracy and wanted to get the job done and mission accomplished with the killing of the target of the youngling, green youngling, and it's like. Yeah, when that happened, I was like, no, no, don't. Like, I was on the inside, like, internally screaming because I was just like, I just, and then I thought to myself, okay, as he's like you say, as he's explaining his reasons, I'm just like, oh God, it's just so true. It's just like it has to be done. And then obviously what makes it even more, I think, painful was that he just goes, yeah, I just don't have these feelings like you do, and I can tell that you're crying or something. He's like, no, I'm not crying. He's like, well, you're not crying, but like you have my senses indicate that you have such and such. I can't remember the lines, but he was like choking up because obviously Mando has made it a big deal throughout the whole series that he hates fucking droids, and then all of a sudden you can hear like his voice. I think his voice cracked at one stage.
It did, yeah. After he said, when he actually said you're crying, he's like, I'm not. You can actually hear the voice crack there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and then it's just like, yeah, so now everybody's on Mando's side, everybody's with Mando, and then they're just thinking, oh, this just whatever. It's just this is not cool. And then obviously he did what he did, and that was another poignant moment for me as well. And then I think the last sort of this wasn't poignant, but the last sort of shocking moment for me was where, and I say shocking, obviously not for the end, which we'll talk about in a second, but like, uh, man, that scene with the two Imperial speeder bikes, the beginning of the last episode where they've just mercilessly killed Nick Nolte's character, and then they've swooped up Baby Yoda, baby green youngling Yoda. And then it's like they're talking, they're stupid, they can't shoot for shit. And then the shocking part that I hate, that I actually legitimately got shocked, is they're punching the baby.
I felt like they were punching my own child when they did that.
Right? Now, granted that he's supposed to be 50 years old, but the problem is that when you've already looked at, baby green youngling Yoda, you've just, it's like you hear the voices associated with, or the voice associated with a child, associated with a toddler, associated with a young thing. So when they were punching it, I was just like, oh, like I was legitimately shocked. I was just like, wait, how did you get past this? Like, I know it's not real and shit, but like, and I know it's supposed to be 50 years old, but you've given the impression that it's still not coherent. It can't talk, it makes noises, but it has a couple of force powers. But regardless of the force powers, you're punching a child.
They were, but again, like, I think for that scene, like as shocking as it is, especially for like a social standard kind of point of view, but again, I think that really played into the character that Moff Gideon is. That like, because at the start of it, they're sitting there saying, "Hey, are they ready?" And he's like, "No, he's not ready at all." And they're like, well, "Why can't we just take it down there?" And he's like, "Do you really want to piss off Gideon?" And it's like, "No, I really don't want to do it." So for me, seeing that the act of punching something so small, innocent, for me, for them, that's kind of like where they feel powerful. Like they got this Moff Gideon character who they won't ever get on the wrong side of. They could hurt him at the same time. So they're like, well, hang on, where am I going to get my power trip from? I'm an Imperial. I'm an Imperial scout. I should be powerful. So for me, that just played more into how fearsome and how fearful we need to be of this Gideon character before we even know truly how terrifying he is.
Yeah, because I know that in between their dialogue, they're just like, "Oh, are you guys ready yet?" It's like, "No, he just killed somebody for interrupting him." And I'm like, "Oh, like this guy acts like Darth Vader."
Yeah, exactly. And it played well. Like he's not even on screen, and you're just like, holy shit, this guy means business.
Yes, but the whole, you're right. I think the whole like trying to get that power of a little young thing and just punching it, I was just like, And then I remember looking at Twitter like shortly after I finished that episode, and there was like, oh, I think there was a lot of people going like, "Why would you beat up a child?" And they was just outraged. And I'm like, it's Twitter. And then I thought to myself, yeah, I can see where they're angry, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not real. But at the same time, it's like, oh, it's a very sort of real, thing where people abuse animals, people abuse things that can't defend themselves, and all that stuff. So I could see the argument on both sides.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it just overall it played into the overall story really well. Like as shocking as it was, it built a universe, it built a vision of where the world's at. So as crazy as it was and as painful as it was to watch, I really appreciate them taking that challenge.
Mm. Now I don't think I asked you, but was there any sort of like poignant moments or any moments that you sort of liked out of the 8 episodes?
Oh,
Too many
I
to name.
gotta admit, yeah, there was a lot too many to name. Um, One thing I really want to give raps to because it gives me another chance to take a stab at Rise of Skywalker because I will never stop doing this.
Yes.
But hey, guys, this is how you lead up to force healing. You do little snippets throughout the whole series where it shows like they want to do it, and then when they do it, it's magical.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that the force healing thing came about only after the whole lifting up of the of that creature, right?
Well, not even then, because you got to remember back to the second episode when he first got attacked by all those little Trandosians, or they were, can't remember who they were. But it's the first time we got to see his really cool weapon disintegrate somebody.
Oh,
And you
yep.
saw him sitting down at the campfire when he was injured. And you saw little Yoda crawl up and he had his hand up like he wanted to help. And then you don't see it until the second last episode. So you
Ah,
actually had that little inkling that it existed. You're like, ooh, maybe he can heal. So it gave an inkling of it. And you see it all throughout the series. Like he goes, has his hand up and he tries to help somebody. And they just think that he wants attention. So they pick him up and move him to the side like a baby without
yeah,
realizing
yeah,
what he can
yeah.
do. And then when he finally does it to Krif Karga after the bat thing attacks him, it's like the reveal is so much better because they took time to just give it those little snippets throughout that kind of made
Yeah,
you
yeah,
think
yeah,
about
yeah.
it and think, oh, can he? Like, is that a thing? Like, can he do it so young? Like, we've seen him pick up a big beast. We've seen him force choke someone, but healing, like that's something new. Like, it takes a lot of energy, but then when he actually delivered it and done it, and then he passed out, you're like, holy crap, that's exactly how it needs to be done.
But remember, that's from a TV perspective. If we were going to do it from a movie's perspective, the only thing that I would probably be saying, which I totally don't disagree with what you're saying, but in a movie perspective, just one explanation. That's it. But it has to be a good one. It can't be just some shite explanation where, I don't know, like The Last Jedi. There was just some really crappy explanations like, oh yeah, she's a nothing, or whatever. If she had just said, oh, I had learned this from the Guardian of the Book of the Wills, okay, I'll accept that.
Well, like as I said in like the last episode, even if at the start of the movie they had her like sitting down reading the Book of the Wills and she had like a cut on her arm for a branch or something, and she looked at the book and then like focused and healed it a little bit, that would be a good explanation for me because there's the book, there's the move, there's her study, and like that would be fine. But where they just had her just straight up heal a snake, it's like, well, where the fuck did that come from?
Well, ironically, when you mentioned about the cut, you do remember, if you really want to remember, the Last Jedi. She did have a burn from one of the weapons. That's the only damage that I think that she got from Snoke's guardsman. Then she had a bandage wrapped around it. So I would have thought that maybe in Rise of Skywalker, that okay, yes, time had sort of passed by, but if there was an everlasting scar, maybe that she would have done some, I don't know, it sounds weird, like a top up job, or like, try to get rid of the scars, and then you could just see some sort of like ability that she has over herself to heal herself in that sort of way. And then while she's doing that, she's looking at the Guardian of the Wills, or she just had a quick glance at it, and then she closes her eyes and then does it. Like, think in that sort of way, I probably would have like accepted it in that way. It's not a great answer, but at least she's looking at the Guardian. I keep saying Guardian at the Book of the Wills.
Yeah, just a small snippet, something that leads to it, that kind of at least gives a bit of background to it, not just throws it in your face and goes, "Yeah, this exists."
Or even if they wanted to go a little bit overboard, just have a line where Leia says they could have doctored Leia saying something like, how are the studies going, especially how is how is your healing going, your meditation and stuff. It's like, oh, it's going well. It's taking some time, but I feel as if like I'm making progress with. Maybe that's even too much to speak, but as long as it says something about healing. I was like, oh, I managed to heal a little animal the other day, and they I haven't seen them again, and I think that they're going well or some shit. I don't know, but if they wanted to go extreme, they can say something like that, just one or two lines or something. Like have some sort of explanation.
Yeah, just something that I can fall back on. Um, but apart from that build up and that like good explanation and like kind of like build up to force powers, I'll give another shout out to the armorer, played by Emily
Oh my
Thorne.
god, yes.
Um, Fantastic, and again proof that how much work goes into emotion with a mask. I think she done a fantastic job as the armorer, especially when she was making the armor, making the weapons, the explanation she gave, the lore behind it, and then that really cool end scene where she took down the stormtroopers with a fucking spanner. Like,
Oof,
loved it. Like, that was
brutal.
like, to me, I'm like, that's Mandalorian. She hasn't got a pistol, she's only got her ironworks weapons, and that's all she needed. And I'm like, that's great, that's what I like.
I completely forgot. I almost forgot about that, but yes, she did have a great scene there when she brutally killed those stormtroopers, as well as I think giving that reveal, sort of like your training is now complete, sort of like Yoda to Luke, but it's the armorer to Mando. I gift you this particular weapon that will help you, but it doesn't work until you're in sync with it or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, you've got it, but you've got to earn how to use it. And
Yeah,
even with the was it whistling
the
something,
whistling birds or something.
whistling birds? Yeah, when she get the explanation for that, she's like, use them sparingly. They're very difficult to come across. And when you like see her like placing them in, you're just like, holy crap! Like, how did you make those? Like, your talent must be amazing.
And then he just fucking just uses them, all of them.
But again, I still enjoyed seeing them. Like, that, it was a great scene. I liked it. Like, put your weapon down, cock's wrist, whistling birds come out, they all drop, and it's like, oh, fantastic.
And he just picks up Baby Yoda and makes his way out of the compound. Yeah, she was good. I completely, like I said, I almost forgot about her. But two more things I want to cover. So, and then we'll probably end it. But like that one, okay, we have to talk about it. Gideon, how did he get that weapon?
I need to know. Like, that's a big reveal. Like, the lore behind the dark saber is literally 1,000 years old. This is well and truly into the future, and last time I saw the dark saber was in Rebels,
Same.
and that was like
Oh,
by
sorry,
the
in
time that
Clone Wars.
in Clone Wars, yeah. But Rebels for me for later on for time frame. So I need to know: did he get that from the Purge, or did he attain it somewhere else? But again, very happy to see that.
Well, yeah, because the thing is that okay, from the last time I saw it was in the hands of a Mandalorian in the Clone Wars, but if it was from Rebels, so and Disney are going to say, "Oh, Rebels is canon," would Gideon have maybe taken it from them? From Ezra? Did Ezra? It wasn't Ezra that wielded it. It was the other Mandalorian, wasn't it?
Yeah, she had it for a while, and then she handed it over to I cannot remember her name, but from Clone Wars perspective, the leaders of Mandalore at the time, her sister, ends up getting it.
Then you could be right. He must have taken it from the Purge because if he was to have the real Mandalorian's name, and as Mando explained about the registration and all that stuff, then yeah, he must have killed somebody to get that from the purge. That's the only answer that I can think of, or sorry, the only logical explanation I can think of in terms of the keeping it encompassed in the series. But man, I was surprised when he
Well, it had to
wielded
be
that.
because like the law behind it was whoever wields the dark saber wields the Mandalorian.
Okay, which brings me to the next question. The future of the Mandalorian. Surely, with the canon and all that stuff, surely are we going to see maybe a Jedi at some stage? Because they did, the armor mentioned the Jedi, the sorcerers, right? And that's pretty much his next goal. So surely we would want to see, or not want to see, but surely there's got to be somebody that maybe is on their way to, and if they drop this kind of line like, we're off to, who are you? Oh, I'm nobody. It's like I'm on my way to see a temple, for to see a great master. It's like, what is that on? What is that? Like, what's that on on your belt? Oh, this? It's a lightsaber or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, surely there's got to be something that would connect, maybe between this and episode 7.
Oh, that had to be. And like, if I was going to like make a suggestion, and well, not suggestion, but if I wanted to see a particular Jedi who was around the Mandalorians, who understands Mandalore, who had some sort of interaction with them, there is only one person, and the artist who created them has confirmed or hinted that they're still alive. And I would say and beg, and I will sacrifice a goat for this if I have to, but I would love to see Ahsoka Tano.
Whoa. I don't know though, because that would be weird though. Ahsoka Tano, where would she go? She would be at this stage as Obi-Wan Kenobi was between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. She'd be a drifter. She's not even a Jedi. Her swords, the color of her lightsabers reflect that.
They do, but I only say this because, like, the way Rebels ended had her and Sabine leaving to go find Ezra. So, is Ezra still around? Because this, like, the way they ended Rebels was way after the second Death Star destruction, after the last fight in Return of the Jedi. So, is Ezra still around? Is Sabine still around? It's not unreasonable because Sabine was only a very young teenager in the series, so it's highly likely that she could, and given the lifespan of Ahsoka species, it's not entirely far-fetched to expect an appearance. But I don't know. I don't know where Jon Favreau wants to go with it, but if Ahsoka came on, I think, honestly, you would need a tremendous amount of tissues to be issued out to all the fans.
Well, yes, it'd definitely be a fan service to say the least, but re- the thing is though, if they're wanting to bring her in and you've got a dark saber around, there's no chance in hell that well, it'd be a struggle for Mando to fight against somebody like that because he has no idea of the Jedi. He has no idea of what they were, of what they're capable of. Even though he could be, one of the greatest warriors in the galaxy by all means, and has the Mandalorian armor and part of their creed. But it's just that for me, I for some strange reason would love to see Skywalker make an appearance in some stage, like he's just passing through, or he's had something to do with the temple, and he's getting something before he goes over there or something. That's a very selfish fan service idea, but the thing is like they've already dropped the word Jedi.
Well, could be a possibility. I mean, around this time, he's probably just starting to rebuild the temple, so not overly far fetched. And again, that's something I could happily swallow.
Even if they didn't have, okay, even if they did not have, say for example, an appearance by him, by Mark Hamill, just to drop a line, like the world, the galaxy is abuzz now that the New Republic are setting their foothold on blah 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 planets, and now they're talking about revival of the once infamous or the based on the propaganda from Revenge of the Sith, they would be deemed in the galaxy as uh, they would be hated. So surely there'll be a backlash if there was an example of where they hear about the new order of Jedi that's being trained by one of the heroes of of the old Imperial Wars.
Hmm, true. But again, like Mandalorians both despise and also respect Jedi. So, hmm,
But Mando has no idea of the Jedi. He only just heard about them from
he
the
was,
armorer.
yeah, and he was very, very, very young at the time at the end of the war. So, hmm,
Because I think there's a lot of things that they could go with this, because especially that if where they want to take it now, because that seems to be the main source of where his destination is, to return. I mean, he's earned his sigil by the monster, but to return this youngling that he is now is fathering to the the Jedi. I mean, essentially, right?
yeah, well, that's essentially where he's going to go because he's a Force user. So, it would make sense to link him to another Force user. But again, who's like, it could be anyone. Like, um, Luke, Ahsoka, Ezra could even be used. Um, oh man, it's so many possibilities. But again, like given what they've done so far, like I don't have really much reservations about who they would use. So I feel like no matter who they decide to use, even if they decide just to throw in just like a random new Force user that we've never really heard of and that they're just going to introduce to the galaxy, I feel like they will still do that justice and like give at least a bit of a background of how that character came to be, and they'll do it probably really well. So I don't have a lot of fear, but I'm just like, do it right, like you have been, and we'll be right.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, I was thinking about the other night. And I'm just like, where could they go with this, especially with now the imps and a grand moff, because now it seems as if that the imperial remnants are still quite organized in such a way, and if they have somebody that's high ranking, all the soldiers, fall, all the stormtroopers fall into place. And then of course, the introduction of that flame trooper, which we've never seen in terms of the old movies where they had the different paintings. The only time that we ever saw a different stormtrooper was when on Hoth, as well as where they look like literally ghosts, and then on Tatooine where they have the shoulder pads. But other than that, and of course the speeder bike stormtroopers. So I would think that with Grand Moff Gideon, that was his name, Gideon.
Gideon, yep.
With Grand Moff Gideon, as well as maybe other remnants of the Empire still trying to think that they've got a foothold, we would have to also imagine that they're going to have to interweave or just add in maybe a turning of those guard to the new guard of the First Order. So surely something must happen in terms of like a Snoke, hearing of a Snoke, hearing of of a new order that is trying to turn all this old armor into new armor. They call themselves the First Order or something, and they're recruiting imps left, right, and center, something like that. So to try and bring back sort of the former, I would say, former villainy and fear of what the First Order was supposed to be, which Episode 7 conveyed that very well, especially with General Hux, and then 8 and 9, the First Order were just non-existent, really. They were just
Fade into the background.
they were just like a band of terrorists, which didn't make any sense. They weren't governed by anything. They were just literally terrorists.
Well, yeah, because they just wiped out the Republic and didn't really create a new stable government. So, by definition, yeah, terror.
Yeah, they're just fucking space terrorists, and they didn't do shit. Even though that in Episode 7, I literally thought, yes, with that speech, and I've said it before and I'll say it forever, General Hux's speech is space Nazi space Nazi-esque, and that struck fear into me. And especially when they were doing the whole like salute, and they were watching the beams go out to destroy those four planets, which was a formidable base, and then it's like terrorists, So there was no real fear after that.
Yeah, no structure, but um, yeah, no, I agree. Like, it'd be good to see them lead into that, but I think firstly would need to not fastly wrap up, but make a link between where the dark saber ended up in, and now I remember Bo-Katan Kryze's hands, and how it got to
Ah,
Moff Gideon and what
yeah, yeah.
happened in between. Like, because I know the armorer mentioned that all the Mandalorians broke into their own little tribes and they're scattered and they hide and they only let one of their members up at any given time. So it's not ludicrous to think that potentially Bo-Katan's tribe and clan are still alive, but like a nice filler to where that happened. And what is Bo-Katan dead now? Is she still alive? Is she in hiding? Will we see Bo-Katan make an appearance? Who knows? I'm very intrigued to see where that goes.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of possibility, and the thing is that yeah, based on what I've read, I heard a little bit of the Circatana one until you just mentioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, I think I've heard that name along the grapevine, but also just the direction of where that last episode was. I think again, Favreau's got quite a lot of answering to do, and if it's not really answered, at least maybe have a sort of okay answer. But just as long as it doesn't follow the path of what the movies had become, then I think the second season should definitely supersede the first. Whether they have it as a 8 episodes or 12 episode season, whatever the heck it is, but it's again, I think they've landed another moneymaker in terms of from the silver screen, big screen to the little screen. So at the moment now, I'm not like to some degree with a lot of people like, oh, I can't wait. I'll wait. I'll be patient. And then I'm sure I'm gonna get spoiled on Facebook. But like, yeah, I just gotta say that yeah, it's I think for me. The last 2 episodes felt really like Star Wars, and that's what won me over. The first six episodes, but yeah, it's definitely a different feel to it where it's a it's a bounty hunter. It's a dirty profession. It's like being a cowboy in the old west. A bounty hunter back then. So yeah, it's just got the gunslinger vibes, and wouldn't it be interesting if we see Mandalorian maybe go full akimbo like Django?
Oh, that would probably be a good direction to go into. Like, go a little bit more wilder, a bit more antics. I like it. But yeah, I like the distinguishes of like sort of like an old west feel in a Star Wars universe. Like, that probably summarizes it really.
Oh yeah, and we didn't even mention the music. The music plays a great part in it as well. Though I do hear some bits of it was struggling to try and, of course, stay away from the Star Wars trope. But I think it. I think the music, whoever had composed it and constructed it, has made a good sense of, that is Mando's theme. This is the kind of action music that we want to put in for this particular scene and whatnot. So the music stands on its own. So this is definitely something that I think has not followed the movie formula, this particular TV series.
No, and also just like part I like as well is actually how they actually put the storyboard in the actual end credits. So it's like you get the show
Oh
and then
yeah,
you
yeah,
get to watch
yeah.
the art behind it. So they're like, here's what we gave you, and like here's all the drawings of like where we got the ideas from. So it's like it
Oh
bridged
man.
that nice gap into like what they gave you and how they came about it. So like again, like really well done to them.
That was so cool, though. There was some really beautiful art before the credits came up. Man, how could I forget about that? That was really actually quite unique because usually I would only see. There was one game that comes to mind immediately when I remember seeing that and remembering it now that you've made me remember was Resident Evil 4, and in the credits they did quite a lot of like drawings and storyboards of locations or whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then when I looked at this for The Mandalorian, I'm just like, oh man, this is like really cool. It's like, wait, I know that scene, but that doesn't have that girl in there, but now it's got this girl in there, or maybe they just were thinking about that or at one stage. So yeah, there was some really great artwork that they showed for each episode.
Yeah, and it kind of gave like a moment of like in your mindset with like when they delivered it, and as you said, you looked at the artwork and there's some characters there that weren't really there, and it kind of gives you that little this is what we could have done, but we hope you enjoyed what you got anyway. And it's like it was a good filler that you just like you enjoyed it, it was well presented, and it's like sort of like an artist who showed you their work and then explained their process. So it was a nice ending. Like you finish the episode, you watch the art, which gave you a chance to actually kind of dissect the episode a little bit more and allow you to kind of like you'd see the art picture and you're like, okay, yes, in this scene this happened and all that. Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I get that now.
Mm. Okay, so out of five.
I'm going to give it a solid 4.5. I think ultimately Favreau has created a really well thought out, really well delivered, and excellently paced Star Wars expanded series that doesn't link too much, but links enough to give it that authenticity. So, by the odd chance, if you're listening, Favreau, thank you.
And I would have to agree as well. I would say 4 out of 5 for me because of the whole first 6 episodes didn't grab me, and then I still wanted to power through it. I had 2 more episodes to go, and then the two sort of well, they gave it that finality for me to really like the series. So 4 out of 5 for me, though. I agree. Now that you mention it again with the pacing, at times it was quite slow, but it wasn't a negative slow. It was more like a slow that was kind of fitting to him because he's a loner. He doesn't work with anybody else. It's just him and his ship. And then, oh shit, how did we forget? How does he transport his bounty?
Oh, yes.
Dude, that scared the crap out of me. And then that one where he caught him, it's just like, and he just pushes him in.
It's just like, you in there. Next.
Oh man, I was just like, what the hell? And then I didn't realize, like, okay, so Bespin had to have like a massive staging area to do that, but now he's got that particular technology in his ship, and he can practically do it instantly.
Yeah, which shows that, like, time frame, the technology has been perfected.
Perfected, augmented. Oh man, how can I forget about that part? That part was actually pretty creepy to me.
Creepy, but again, like that small, subtle link to the originals, which was really nice.
That and again attesting to his character because he's a loner. Like you don't want him to sit in that chair while you're piloting and just yapping away. So she's like, "Oh, I'll just freeze you in carbonite."
I'm sure the cowboys of the West who used to hunt bounties would have loved to have that technology instead of listening to "I'm innocent, I didn't do it" for 9.5 hours,
Oh, they'd gag them for sure.
or punch him in the face like Red did.
Oh, that's brutal.